What's up, guys? I hope you've been doing well. First off, I apologize for the mess behind me. That's for the big day next week. I'm getting married, and after that, it'll be gone, but you normally don't see that anyway. Anyway, today I wanted to show you a couple things I found out about the HX Stomp, and I want to show you how I'm using it to create a really nice, authentic sounding patch for acoustic guitars where you can plug directly in with your undersaddle pickup, and it gets rid of some of that quack that we all hate, and it makes it sound a lot more like putting a microphone to the guitar. So I'll run through my patch and my preset, and I'll show you everything that I'm using here. And at the end of the video, I'm going to be playing a comparison between the Martin with a microphone, the SM57, so you can hear what this would sound like in a very practical live situation if you had a mic. I'll play it direct through the HX Stomp with no emulation or none of the preset that I'm going to show you. And then I'll play it with the preset, and you can decide what's going to work best for you. I'll do the same thing with the Eastman guitar behind me. This is the PCH. It's a much more affordable guitar. This Martin's like $3 something. The PCH is $400. So if you have a more affordable acoustic guitar, then you can tell how much this preset is going to help you. Anyway, so let's get started. We're going to look at the HX editor. So what you want to do when you set up any new patch in the HX Stomp is go to the main LR over here, set your input impedance. That's the most important thing. I usually go with 1M, and that just works for my guitars, but try it out on different settings for you, and you might find something better. I have an EQ curve. I have a volume patch because I use an expression pedal for my volume. The IR is very important. I'll get to that in a second. Make sure you set up your effects loop if you use one, and I have a loop and a chorus set up, and I'll get to that in a second. So the first thing I want to talk about is the IR. It stands for impulse response. If you're new to the HX, basically what an impulse response is something that you can load into the Helix, and you can have it kind of set in very basic terms, like an overall EQ curve on the sound. And that's just a very dry, basic way of putting it. And usually it's used for cabinet simulation, for emulating different amps, but there actually are acoustic guitar impulse responses out there. So the morning of that gig I did some research and I was reading around. I decided on going with 3 Sigma audio impulse responses. They have a couple different options here, and I played through everything. They have samples, and I decided that this impulse response based on a Martin D45 sounded the best to me. So if you choose to buy that, you'll get the folder, open it up. They have options for a Kemper amp also. They have options if you're playing electric guitar through the Helix. I think that's for a different video though. So go to the acoustic folder. If your guitar is a sound hole pickup, they have impulse responses that are targeted towards guitars with sound hole pickups. They'll sound better for you. If you have an undersaddle like me, go with the Piezo. I went with 48K. That's the sample rate. And out of all of these, I played through each of them with my guitar, and I decided that the Martin Piezo 3A sounded the best to me. And so I loaded that into the HX Stomp, and that became my IR. I set the level. I did some low cut. I always have this low cut on everything. We don't need that down there for the guitar, and a little bit of high cut also. I put the mix in at 85%. So the one thing I think could have been improved on the IRs, and this might just be a fact of the medium, of the digital interface, but I thought that the attack of the notes didn't sound quite so natural. So I moved it down to 85%, so the first thing you're hearing is actually the normal attack of the guitar, followed by the body and the sound that's coming from the impulse response. So once you have that set up, I moved on to an EQ curve. This is what I settled on, but as you're playing through, set it up and just kind of move stuff around, go one by one so you can, plug your guitar in, max it out, see what that sounds like, and figure out what the best setting is to work with the IR for you. Again, maybe 3A won't work the best for you, but you have all these options for $10. I think it's a pretty good deal. And one thing I found that was really helpful when I'm setting up an acoustic instrument is it's easy to get confused with the acoustic sound coming, right next to you as you're playing the guitar versus what's coming out of your speakers. So set up a loop using this patch here. Let me get started. So first of all, move the loop to the front of the chain so it's not being affected by anything you have going. Set up a loop. And so set that, and then you can play around with the EQ curve, put your guitar down, and you can worry about the computer program and working with the HX Stomp instead of constantly playing the guitar and trying to figure out what the sound actually is coming out of your speakers. So keep that loop going. We'll play around here. This is what this sounds like. That kind of gives it a boxy sound. Anyway, you get the idea. You can play around with the different IRs that way too as you do that. So we have the EQ curve going to the volume patch, so that doesn't matter. The IR that I've set up going through. Finally, the loop, that's where I ended up leaving it at the end once I figured out my sound. And I use a little bit of chorus in it, actually. You can see the mix is set very low, but it just kind of gives it an extra dimension. And also I use it in my mono patch, so I have the direct in stereo and I have a direct in mono patch over here. And keeping something like that that's always on at the end is a way for you to sum your stereo rig down to mono if you only want to use one cable. And how you do that is just set it up either with a mono or a stereo chorus if it's always on. And if you don't want to use a chorus effect at all, still put it in there so you can sum down to mono and then just throw the mix down to 0. So that's my setup. I also have a blank setup here, which is no IR and no EQ curve. And I'll get to the demo now. I'm going to play the Martin first so you can hear that, and then I'll move to the Eastman PCH so you can hear what a much more affordable guitar sounds like through this rig. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Leave me a comment letting me know how you're planning on using the HX Stomp with your acoustic. This thing has been such a great investment already for me, and it's awesome to see the many different ways I can use it as a problem solver piece of equipment. If I've helped you at all, make sure you leave a like, and I'll see you in the next video.